All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. 3D Code Warrior, good to see you over there on the Twitch side. Hello. So we are going to, I can't really say we're going to pick up where we left off last stream because I actually did a whole bunch of crap off screen. But we'll get into that in a minute. Before we do, though, I do want to just take a quick second to thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our highest tier of support, the elite partner, Javier Lazaran, followed by the partners, Gerbolis Inc. and Matt Osgard. They are the second highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon, followed by the list of supporters you see here on the screen. They're a combination of the other tiers of support on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for that support. It is greatly appreciated and helps me cover the cost of things running this channel, things like software licenses, hosting fees, eventually assets, and paying a musician, things like that. So thank you all very much for that support. It helps me out a lot, and it really is appreciated. Speaking of appreciation, I do appreciate each and every one of you guys, the viewers, whether you're joining us live here on the YouTube side or the Twitch side, or if you're just catching the VOD after the fact. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. Without you guys, this project and this channel would not exist, so thank you very much for that. Pale Blue Zebra and Apotham, hello, how's it going? Good to see you. Hope you guys are doing well. All right, so we have a lot to cover because I actually accomplished a lot over the weekend off stream. And so what we're actually looking at now is something that's been broken for a long time, which is the test bed. And I've got that up and running again. And what I did was I basically nuked what was there and replaced it with a sort of lightened copy of the Illumina code, which is what I was talking about doing all along. And so the test bed is ready to go. That was the last major item that was really kind of standing in the way of us being able to release 0.11 of the engine. Although I did find one other thing that I really would like to take care of before releasing that. So this is up and running again, as you guys can see, but the performance is poop, which is what I really want to take a look at before I release that. So I have some ideas as to why that is, and we may or may not look at that tonight, but just to sort of prove the point, if you will. This is the debugger currently running the test bed. So I'll just kind of move some of this stuff around here. And so I actually found that the problem is with the skin shader, right? Specifically, every model is actually using this now. And this portion right here seems to be what is actually the most problematic, because if I actually take this, oops, them key bindings there. If I actually take this and comment it out and save that to hot reload it, you'll notice that the frame rate immediately jumps, right? It's not great still, but it almost doubles. And so it's stuff like that that, I kind of just need to take a look at. In this case, it's, we have a lot of sort of static geometry that's looking at bones that it doesn't need to be. And I was initially thinking that it would be cheaper to just sort of run through this calculation anyways, no matter what we're doing, versus switching shaders, but it seems that that is not the case, and not the case by far. So what I'm going to be doing is at some point I will be splitting this back out between animated geometry and skinned geometry. And so that'll take place mostly in the renderer, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Yeah, that's one of the major improvements that we have to do. And then I also need to do some profiling to figure out how to get the performance back on track, because we've done a lot of things, and this particular scene is a little bit heavier than most things that we're going to be doing. There's about 400 draw calls for the Sponza alone. And then we've got just a couple of other objects over here as well. And so, yeah, when you break it down, that's kind of what is causing the issue. But we should be able to do 400 draw calls relatively easily with very little pushback, right? Let's see. So we see here drawn 399. So one thing to bear in mind, though, is that is 399 times 3. Because we do have the water plane here. So we have to render everything once for the refraction pass, once for the reflection pass, and then once again for the final pass that you get with everything here on the screen. And so there may be some optimizations that we can do to try and eliminate some of those draw calls. And actually, it's even more than that. There's a few other optimizations that we need to do. For example, we do have cascading shadow maps. And so what that means is everything is drawn another 4 times, once per cascade. And we don't have any sort of filtering on that right now. So we're just drawing everything. And so, that filtering is probably going to be pretty important, to get things to draw appropriately. But, it's just, it's going to be one of those things that we just kind of have to tackle probably sooner rather than later, at least some of it, before we move on too much further. All right. Doing good, working on adding hot reloading into my game engine. Half the time it crashes on reload, the other half it reloads, then crashes after a few seconds. Yeah, that's always fun. That was another thing that I actually fixed off camera, although I don't know that I fixed it for the test bed, but I know for Illumina I fixed it. So the thing that always trips me up with hot reloading, and that may or may not be doing the same for you, is function pointers, right? As long as you reload any function pointers that you have, and you don't actually change sort of the shape of the data in memory, you should be fine. But yeah, that's just kind of the way that goes. All right. So that pretty much does it for the test bed. As far as that update, we have that up and working again, but that's not even the largest change. So I'm actually just going to bat that off to the side for a second here. And actually, I'm going to undo this change and save that because we do actually need that. Okay. So the other change, I should say the other couple changes, are rather. Let's see, did I actually put that? That's the to-do change log. So I added these in the change log, and these are the biggest changes here, right? So I did a lot of fixes around the standard UI to get things to work a little bit more smoothly. We're going to actually jump into that in a second. And then also 3 major moves that I was talking about earlier. And I wasn't thinking I was going to do it with this release, but I went ahead and ripped off the Band-Aid and did it anyways. So the first move is that I have moved the sort of bespoke game renderer to a newly defined K-forward renderer in the runtime. So it's now part of the engine again. And the reason I did that is because that, along with the scene, which has also been moved to the runtime, I discovered that I don't really need game-specific entities as much as I thought that I did. I can really just build what I need out of a collection of entities that are somewhat generic. And so I've gone ahead and moved those back. And if we need some sort of enhancements or game-specific things added to that, we'll go ahead and create like some sort of plugin system for the scene to allow that, as well as the renderer. But so the Illumina renderer is no more. The Illumina scene is no more. That is the K-forward renderer and the K-scene going forward. And so those changes have already been pushed to 0.11. They are already up on the repo. So the last and not least change is that I started, kind of scaffolding the editor on the last stream, and I did a lot of work around that too. We're going to talk about that as well. And I was initially saying, well, the editor probably needs to be bespoke to the game as well. But I got thinking about that a little bit further, and I'm like, you know what? Since we're actually making the renderer in the scene somewhat sort of generic, and we're okay with that, I went ahead and made the editor that way too. So the editor has actually been moved to the utils plugin, which is where all of the other editor stuff is. So if we look in the Kohi lib, that is right here, right? And so this now contains the editor. And so the way that I'm going to work with this is if we have anything that is game specific that needs to be added to the editor, again, we'll just do that as some sort of editor plugin and hook into the editor that way. And so that should be an interesting experiment into how we're going to develop that system if and when we need it. And so those are the big major 3 changes that we've put in place. So the good thing about this for you guys is when you go to actually grab this project, you will now have access to the scene that we've been working on, the renderer that we've been using, as well as the editor that we are now building. So that's definitely a big move in what I think is the right direction. Bika Betts, how's it going? Good to see you over there on the YouTube side. Look sick. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. First time I've ever done a non-toy version of Hot Reloading. It feels like some weird Linux edge case I'm running into. Not sure yet. Linux specific edge case? That's interesting. Because Hot Reloading is basically just a DL Open and DL Sim for Linux and Mac OS, and then on Windows it's a little bit different, but like once you abstract that layer, it's not really too big of a deal. If you want, we actually set that up quite some time ago in this series, so that's actually on my YouTube channel. I don't remember if I titled it Hot Reloading. I think I did. But yeah, it's definitely in there. If you want to take a look at the Kohi code base, there's definitely examples in there, both at the platform layer as well as at the actual application layer as to how to handle that, right? So the main things to bear in mind with that is anytime you reload the DLL or SO, whatever it is you're dealing with, the shared library, anytime you reload that, you have to refresh your function pointer addresses because they're going to be different, most likely. And as long as you do that and you don't change the shape of the data, you should be fine. Unless you've got like some sort of memory corruption or something like that. Okay. Anyway, enough yapping. Let me show. Let's see. I'm actually going to... Let me close this other debugger real quick. All right. So let me run this real quick and show you guys the editor, which I've started building and we're going to continue building tonight. So the first thing you do is load some scene. It doesn't matter what scene. Right now I've got that hotkeyed to just sort of load up a scene all on its own, right? So it's the standard things where you can run around, jump, you can, attack, whatever. And so once you're in the scene, you hit a key and you transition to the editor. Now this obviously looks a little bit different from what you guys have seen. But this is kind of what the editor is starting to look like as I start to scaffold it out. Obviously there's some visual things here and there that need addressing, like the name of this is like way too long in the text box. But essentially, the way that this editor is going to be designed, and I've thought a lot about this, and I kind of like the direction I'm going to go with it. I've got a little bit of experience working with editors like this in the past, is the editor is actually going to run within the game, right? So you load the editor up based on whatever scene you have currently selected. That doesn't mean that you can't then load a different level while you're in the editor, which we can't do yet, but we will in the future. And essentially the idea is that you should be able to load up any scene within the editor. and you have essentially different editor modes, right? So there are two editor modes that we have so far. We have the scene mode, which is sort of top level or high level settings for the particular scene. So, for example, here we have the name, right? I've got to expose other properties, but we have a name, right? And then there's also entity mode, right? So we have scene and we have entity, right? So we're in scene mode now, and this is something I need to add. I need to like indicate somehow that this is the selected sort of editor mode. And then when I click entity, we've got a separate sort of entity window that pops up, right? And so the way that this is accomplished is all of these controls are routed to the sort of background panel here. And so the background panel is treated essentially as a window. And so we have one for entity mode and one for scene mode. And so we just basically hide and activate / inactivate / change visibility on whichever one we're currently dealing with. And then when we go ahead and select an entity, so we can select this audio emitter here. It'll tell us like what type of entity we have selected. And that'll come into play in a bit. It'll give us the name, it'll give us the position, the orientation, the scale of it. And when we select different entities within the scene, we have the ability to do that and edit those, right? So we can actually take this cube and either edit it in local mode and see that position change there, or in global mode and see that position change as well. Or we can grab, its parent, and we can, rotate that around a little bit. I've actually got to focus a little bit here on. Actually, I just found a bug. I've got to focus a little bit here on usability of this, right? But basically, we can edit this sort of parent object here. And rotate it around, and we see that the child rotates with it, right? I did a lot of fixes around this because that gizmo was horribly broken. And it's still a little bit broken in some edge cases, but for the most part, it's actually up and running smoothly. Let me see. Eyeless42 with the tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for the support. Let's see. I'm going to try to pronounce your name. Imdrea, first time chatter, welcome. Are you making custom engine or making custom engine for your game? Both. Yes. Eyeless, you actually kicked off a hype train. That's very funny, actually. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Everything that we've written here is from scratch, right? Including the UI, the editor that you see here, all of the underlying tech, all of this stuff has been written from scratch. And so the idea is this is to show a way of writing a game engine from the ground up. It's not the only way. It's not necessarily even the right way. All the time we do a lot of trial and error, but we do show what that process might look like. So we have developed everything here from scratch. Let's see. Singy over on YouTube, good to see you as well. How are you doing, bud? Okay, so the other portion of this is like this display here isn't just visual, right? It's not just to allow us to visualize what's going on or where something's located. I can actually select something and type in an orientation. So like if I want to use, and the orientation is quaternion, right? So if I want to use identity, I can use 0, 0, 0, 1. And it resets that rotation back to what you might expect. If I wanted to zero that out in space, I can do 0, 0, 0. And now it is, zeroed in the scene. If I wanted to change the scale, I can do, 2 on one axis, right? And that's, you'll notice that affects the child as well, right? So this it's probably not a great example. This particular type of entity, the volume doesn't actually respond to scale. So it's probably not the best example, but we can try that with a different form of model here. So if I select this tree, for example, we can see that it's scaled at 4, 3, 4, right? So if I wanted to change this to, let's change the Y to like 16, right? Now all of a sudden that tree is gigantic, right? And so, you know, I could use this to make the tree absolutely huge if I wanted to. Let's see. Did I miss? Yeah. So 14, you know, 15. And so this gives us a very easy way to be able to manipulate objects within the world. Oh, looks like I actually scaled the water plane. That's cool. Let me change that back to 1. And so, you know, this is definitely going to be super useful for us when we go to start actually building our world, right? Like this particular scene has just got a few, you know, random junk objects thrown into it just for testing purposes, and that's what we're going to stick with for a while. But when it comes to actually changing things up, this is going to be invaluable. So I want to extend this a little bit and actually make it, you know, a little bit more useful. So, you know, I could change this back to 3, 4. Was it 3, 4, 3, or I think it was 4, 3, 4. Yeah, something like that. And so, let's see. The other thing is, and I'm not going to do this because we actually have, I've put some stuff in here that I don't necessarily want to save. In fact, I'm going to switch back to game mode for a second. And whenever you do that and you exit the editor and you don't save your stuff, those changes essentially get thrown away. So if I switch back to game mode and then switch back to editor mode, you'll notice everything is reset, right? So our sort of separation of the states between editor and runtime game is complete. And so if I were to change this, right, let's say I wanted to change this tree and I wanted to move it, let's see, the spawn point for our character is here, right? And so if we see that, right, and so if we take this tree and we move it over by the spawn point, right, just right about there, and then we go ahead and hit the save button. And then go ahead and load back into the game mode. We'll now see that our view is obstructed because the tree is so close to our spawn point, right? Actually, wait a minute. Did that spawned me up like up here? Why did it do that? Should have spawned me here. Okay, so that's an interesting bug. It should have picked the spawn point. Why did it spawn me here? Where did it actually... Yeah, like spawn me right next to this cube thing. Interesting. Okay. So it looks like we've got a bit of a bug there. If I take a look at the log, we should have something that tells us where it actually spawns. Okay, so spawning player at position. So setting rotation. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and let's just open a new document there. And I'm going to go back to this and go back to the editor and select the spawn point. And let's see where that spawn point actually is. So 16, 0.4, 19. That's interesting. Okay, so it says that it spawned us there. However, I do have something in here. Do we have is this parented to something? So editor, select parent. It does have a parent. So spawn 0, 0. And that's a spawn point. Something tells me that that's not actually updated correctly. When we do that, when we run that command, I don't think it's actually updating this. Okay, so we may have to fix that. Because that's spawn 0, 0, so what is this? That's spawn points. Interesting, so that wasn't actually updating. Okay. So it should be grabbing the world position of this. But I think what it's doing is it's actually grabbing the local position of this and not taking into account its parent transform, which its parent does have a transform. So I think that's why it's off. So I suspect if we take this and we set it to 0, 0, 0, right? And then let's just make sure. Let's make sure that is where we think it is. It's not. Does that have another parent? Yeah. Has no parent. Okay. Oh, it is there. Looks like my gizmo just didn't update. Tiles test. Spawn points. Okay. So we have the spawn points there. I'm going to go ahead and save this scene and then switch back. And if my theory is correct, we should spawn directly on the spawn point. And apparently my theory is not correct. Okay, so what explains the offset? Because really... Oh wait, it is correct. Because that actually moved the spawn point here. If I move this over here, you can actually see where the spawn point is. So that is actually, my theory is correct. Okay, so the spawn point needs to take into account its global point, not its local point. All right, so let's switch back to the editor and let's move this back over to where it was. This will be a good test, right? And I'm going to save that and I'm going to exit. So if we go to zone system, let's see, spawn points. Okay, let's see. Get spawn points. Transform. Wait a minute, why are we creating a new transform for this? On scene loaded, we get the spawn points. What does this actually contain? Oops. Let's see. So this should just get all of our spawn points from our spawn points array type. Yes. Okay. So it does that. Let's see. Point. K spawn point. Wait, point entity. Return points. So we allocate an array of K spawn points. You know what? That's actually... We take the transform from there. Okay, that's fine. But then why are we doing... Oh, if we don't have a spawn point, then we're using this. Okay. All right, so that's fine. Zone load. Loading zone. All right, so on scene loaded is where we're going to do the thing. Where is it actually doing that? Don't we actually have current spawn point get out position, out rotation? What was that? Current zone spawn get. Where is that actually used? Unload current. Let me look at this. Game zone loaded. Here we go. Player spawn in zone. Spawn point ID. Okay, so when we take that, avatar add to scene, player. Okay, where does it? Here we go. Current spawn zone. Okay, so here is the position. Okay, so this is the function that is doing it. So this guy is taking the position in the rotation, but that's local. This should be world for both. That should fix it. So if we go here and run, oops. Load. Okay. Spawned us at 0, 0, 0. Why has it done that? That's the opposite of what I wanted. Make sure that wasn't a fluke. Yeah, that's spawning me at the... Yeah, the origin. Okay, that's not right. Let's see. Is there any scripting layer or is gameplay code also in C? Gameplay code is also in C. Yeah, we have hot reloading for that. Spiro, good to see you. How you doing, bud? Welcome. Psycode, good to see you as well. Just a quick shout out to my buddy Spiro. If you guys are interested in some GigaChad stuff, go follow him. He does a lot of tech news about current events in the tech industry, but he's also making a game where the engine is written in C and compiled to WASM, and he's using the HTML DOM as his renderer, which is super out of the box thinking. I love it. And so definitely go check him out. Sergeant Pepper, good to see you as well. Scripting layer in Rust when? Never. Lots of progress coming up on the game soon. Keep me posted, dude. For sure. Definitely. Let's see. Any reason why you're doing what appears to be, since it's 4 values, quaternion rotations instead of Euler? Yes, because of gimbal lock. Euler rotations are just wholly inadequate for representing rotations in the world, because you can get gimbal lock, which is basically when you have a certain rotation, you get one axis that collapses onto another, and then you only have 2 degrees of freedom instead of 3, which is terrible, right? So if you're not familiar with that, look up gimbal lock. But yeah, we're using quaternions because they're much more stable. Now, that being said, the editor right now exposes quaternions. However, at some point, I will be updating the editor to also allow input of Euler angles. But basically, the way that's going to work is it's just going to be a facade. And we're going to translate that to quaternions under the hood. So we're not going to use Euler angles for any of our rotations. Let's Let's see. How do you deal with the loss of drive working on your project? Like, first I was really motivated, but then as time passed, I slowly lost motive to continue. Same thing with reading books. That's fair. Couple things. Let's see. Where do I start with this? I'm stubborn, so that helps. But point number 2 is it's at this point I'm almost 5 years into the project. So it's a bit of a sunk cost fallacy, right? Like I'm so far into it that I can't like give up at this point. But more realistically and more concretely, what I do to kind of get around that is sometimes I'll keep like a to-do list of easy things that are can quickly be knocked out, or things that are big visual updates, and I'll sort of put those to the side. And leave them while I work on some of the more complex stuff, and some of the more long-winded stuff. And then every once in a while, I'll pick something out of that list and I'll just do it. And the benefit to that is that you get a quick visual update. You get a quick sort of dopamine hit, I guess, if you will. Sometimes when you're struggling to get something done, sometimes getting those quick fixes in helps, right? Instant reward. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I'll save those and I'll be like, yeah, I know this is going to be a quick thing, but let me just put that to the side and I'll get it when I really need one. And a good example of that is actually some of the editor UI that I've been working on. That was actually one of those things, because what I did right before that with moving the editor, moving the renderer, moving the scene, that was a lot of work, right? It was a lot of grunt work and moving stuff around and refactoring stuff, and not a lot of visual update, because when you get it all done and moved, there's no sort of change in how it works other than where stuff's located. And that was the reason I did some of the editor stuff, right? So it's just kind of mindfully thinking of some of that stuff to be able to allow yourself to have some of those quick wins later on. Let's see. Inspired from you, I've also started live streaming on YouTube. Awesome. I develop an agent framework in Go. Cool. So I will check out your channel off stream. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad I helped out in some way. Did it not? Why is it not giving me... That URL is not working for me for some reason. Not sure why. There it is. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and toss you a sub, right? But yeah, I'll check it out off stream. Yeah, so I hope that helps. Get overwhelmed and tend to just quit. Don't do that, right? The other thing is to work in branches. That's the other piece of solid advice I can offer is, if you're going to do some sort of big refactor, do that in a separate branch. So that way, if you get in the middle of it and you're like, oh man, I'm just really sick of this. I need a break. I need to go do something else. You can switch back to your main branch and like do another quick hit feature that is just like a quick, simple thing that's visual that you can knock out, and then go back to your branch. Right? Just another way to sort of circumvent that. And that's lots of years of experience that's taught me that. So I hope that helps. Finding the underlying reason why you're working on a project in the first place is a good reminder of what motivated you to start, and perhaps help you regain focus and willpower to continue. That is also a good point, Psychode. Yes. One of the things that has motivated me with this whole project is, every once in a while I get a comment from one of you guys on my YouTube videos or here in stream or something like that says, hey, it helped me out in this way, or, it helped me get a job, or it helped me understand this, or something like that. And those things mean a lot to me. They have a huge impact on me when I read stuff like that, feedback like that. And it definitely makes me want to continue doing this, right? And so, I actually just I tweeted not too long ago that we hit 44,444 subscribers earlier today. Like I literally pulled up my YouTube channel and that was what it had. And you know, when I started this project, we were at like 1,000 subscribers maybe. And so yeah, it was just, you know, that's kind of a huge thing as well, to know that there's people out there that are getting value from it. Is a huge thing to me, for sure. Smudge, thank you so much for the tier 1 20 months. Thank you so much for that support. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that means a lot to me too. Thank you very much for that. Let's see. Gotta take those W's. I see what you mean. No matter how big or small they are, that's important, right? A W is a W. Paychecks, kickbacks at my Kofi. Thank you very much. Wait, what about my Kofi? I don't know if that actually like alerts here on stream, unfortunately. I had it working at one point, but it's like been wholly unreliable. I haven't checked it in a bit. Let me check that real fast. Okay, yeah, a couple of you guys have tipped on there, which has been huge. I should probably take those funds and use them for something sometime soon. But yeah, any of that kind of stuff is a huge thing to me, because just the fact that you guys are willing to part with some hard-earned dollars to support me is huge to me. You know, and I always try to turn that right around and invest it into the channel however I can. So, yeah, just another big thank you to you guys who have supported me in that way. But also a big thank you to you guys who have supported me just by hitting the subscribe button or just by being here. Finally managed to be awake to watch Beardman coding again. Where is the How to Groom Your Beard series on Instagram? I don't know. I mean, I brush it every day, several times a day, but that's about it. And I condition it, but that's about it. Channels underrated, deserve much more for the free advice you give and the work you put in. Oh, I really appreciate that sentiment. Thank you very much. I'm trying to grow the channel, but you know, that's a secondary goal here. My goal is, you know, if it helps you guys in any way possible, that is the primary goal here. You and Tokyo Spliff inspire me a lot. It's rare to see people committed to their craft, especially in projects that big. Yeah, Tokyo Spliff is a Giga Chad for sure. That dude is awesome. He's definitely one of my favorites as well. All right. Was that a side hit to your I will do a makeup stream? Yeah, I know, right? I know. Ivo, I know exactly what you're saying. Maybe one of these days, right? Although, I don't know, like, I don't really do anything with my beard, right? Or my hair. Anyway, back to coding. So we are why are we getting as the world position? Spawn points. Okay, I wonder if we shouldn't hold on to the transform, but maybe just world position get. So if we do the transform there, maybe we should just retrieve the entity whenever we need it. I feel like this is probably just giving us a bogus like identity transform because it can't find out what we're actually looking for. So spawn points in the zone. Okay, that's the destroy. We don't care about that. We don't care about the unload currents. Unseen loaded. So we get the spawn points here. I wonder. So we take the, okay, so this is the case where we don't get any. Which, I wonder if that's actually happening. I don't think our console log said anything about that. No spawn points. No. So we didn't get that. So I guess we could probably maybe just put a breakpoint in here and see what the hell is going on. Spawn point count is the DRA length, or... Oh, wait a minute. This technically works, but it should not be doing... That should be 0. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. What am I working on tonight? So we're working on various things as I find them. I want to do some more editor stuff tonight, but I just discovered a bug with spawn points where it's not using the correct position for the spawn point. And that is because if we take a look actually at our scene, we have this sort of entity called spawn points, and then in that there's a child spawn point, right? And essentially what's happening is if you look at these numbers, this is exactly what's being used as the spawn point, right? Even though this parent transform here has a transformation along the z-axis. And so what's happening is our spawn is being off-put by that. And so I made a change to that to get the world position, but for some reason it's not actually doing that, and it's just giving me the identity transform, which I don't fully understand. So I'm going to put some debug code in here, or at least I guess we could probably just breakpoint it, to be honest, to figure out what the heck is going on there. So 2781, and you know what, let's actually... Did I save that first? Let me just build this again. Okay. So I'm going to put a breakpoint right here and go here. All right, and so we're going to load up that scene. And our out spawn point count is 1, which is what we expect, right? We have 1 spawn point here in the scene. So that is what we expect. Let's see. So we loop through that. We get the transform. So point entity. So we're doing a k entity pack here. And so this is a index into this array of spawn points. So this is going to be an entity pack is type and then type index. So base type is spawn point, so that's correct. So we pack that in, and then we pack the index along with it, which is 0, along with these other reserve values. We pack those into an entity. And then we grab the transform, which is 94, and the name. So we can actually decode this name really quickly in our debug console. So we can do kname string get, and then paste that in there. And that is spawn 00. So we are in the correct entity. All right. So let's see. We allocated an array of that many. We have points. Okay. That should end. We should return points. All right, so Z spawn point count is 1. All right. So let's see. On scene loaded. So we do the callback. So we say zone loaded, which is there. Dingus test zone. And then we go ahead and we player spawn in zone. So the spawn point ID is 1. I think that's the problem, actually. Why did we get a spawn point of 1? Because it should be 0 indexed. I think that's the problem. So see spawn point ID. That's here. That's the zone loaded context. We pass that in from on scene loaded. Okay, so I think actually the problem might be in our game code. Let's see. So I think trigger load. Okay, so we're not actually outputting this anywhere, but I suspect this spawn point ID is coming from a command that was run. So let me take a look at the logs here, because I'll bet that's coming in from the log somewhere. So I think let's see. Let's actually search for this, which technically counts as an input. Go to test zone 1. There it is right there. So that is saying spawn point 1. So go to zone. Where is that happening? Go to zone. Spawn point ID. Ah. Choose a specific spawn point. Okay. All right. This actually makes a lot of sense. So this game on load scene is what is triggered by the hotkey that I hit on my keyboard here, the developer hotkey. That does a spawn point ID ++ and then mods it by 2, assuming there's 2 spawn points, which there aren't because I actually removed one. So if we take a look at zone 00, we have 1 spawn point. That would work if we had 2. We have 1. So what this should be is just that. And I think we can actually get rid of this hack, right? Because this is just a developer, I guess we could put a to-do here, to-do, developer shortcut, take out in release builds, right? So now I'll bet if I build that, and relaunch, now it should actually respond correctly by putting us at the correct spawn point. So I'm going to disable that breakpoint. I'm not going to get rid of it yet, but disable it. And no, womp womp. Okay, so why have we done that? Go to test zone 0. So that should have grabbed the first spawn point. Let's see. That's going to be down here towards the bottom. Where is... Show context display. Wait a minute. Are we actually? No. Okay. So we enable that. Why have we enabled that if I'm not? Oh, because I actually am in. Because I actually am in. Okay. Let me reopen this. Looks like it thought I edited it. All right, so disable teleport. Okay. So that's our enable teleport. Go to zone 0. Why did it choose? This is all stuff loading. Here we go. Right there. Spawning player position. That means it got an identity transform for some reason. Okay. Let me think as to why that might be. So this command is correct. So trigger zone load. Spawn point ID. Wait, why is this? Why is that invalid ID? That should be taking the first argument and converting it. That is done here. Arguments 1. Zone load failed to convert argument 1 to U8. I don't think we got that error message. All right, so I'm going to put, let's see, this is in Illumina main 1303. So I'm going to put a breakpoint there and run and load. Okay, so arguments sub 1. Wait a minute, how many arguments do we have? Shouldn't we only have 1? Argument count is 2. Oh, right, test zone and then, okay. So let me take a look at this, which is 0. Okay. So we go ahead and we do that. Spawn point 0. Okay, that's correct. So we go in here. Zone name, state lookup. Let's see. Okay, so we get that. Okay. So we grab the current zone. There's where we load the actual asset. Shrink this down a little bit. Spawn point ID should be 0. Okay, so that's the context that gets passed along with that. And then on scene loaded, let me go and put a breakpoint here, because that's going to be the callback that's made when we load. So if we take a look at that context, spawn point ID is 0. Okay. So spawn points get spawn points. So we go ahead and create the points array. We have 1 entry. Cool. Okay. And that has a transform. That is fine. Okay, so we do the loaded callback. Spawn in zone. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Let's see. Classic exemplar of a dingus hack in its natural habitat. 100%, yes. Dingus test zone. I was thinking of David Attenborough when I wrote that. Ren and Stimpy works too. That's funny. Love it. Let's see. $2,700 lines of code in one file. Split that up, bro. Nope. Not going to do it. In fact, I have several things that I'm going to do the opposite on. If you think that's a lot, my Vulkan backend is almost 5,000 lines. It just doesn't make sense to split things up all the time. And all you're really doing is like increasing compile time for no reason. Right? Especially when you can, jump to a document symbol and say, oh, I want to look at, texture resize and just jump right to it. Right? It's really not that big of a deal. Don't let people tell you that you have to split up files just to split them up because the line count is too high. It's such an arbitrary thing, Shouldn't the spawn point ID be 0? Yes, it should. Hate all of your 1, 0, and 2 array lookups, even in PRC. Should use. This is my index I want. Yeah, I mean, I do that eventually, but when I'm prototyping code, I usually just hard code the stuff. I tend to be a lot more particular with that in my engine code that's used outside of just my game. But the game code, I tend to kind of not clean up quite as much. Reminds me of my 2,000 plus lines of HTML code that you still haven't looked at. I have looked at it. I'm just not sure what you're looking at, or what you're looking for, rather. You would hate my code base. Can't handle the constant scrolling up and down a large file. I mean, to each their own, right? It's just, if you have all your stuff, if you reduce the amount of files, it compiles quicker, right? That's just the way it is. To me, like the Vulkan stuff kind of all belongs in one place. I could split it up, but then you have the mental overhead of which file was that particular thing in, versus, oh, I have something that I need to address in Vulkan. Let me just go to that file and jump to a symbol. It's just a different way of thinking about it. One's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just whatever makes the most sense to you and is the easiest for you to use. You write Rust because you write Rust, fast compile times are a pipe dream. Yes, that is true. One of the many reasons I don't use that. To that Twitch user with a proper IDE, you can just collapse functions, making scrolling faster. Yes, but I don't scroll. Right? Like, I don't do a lot of this unless I'm trying to actively visually represent something to you guys. I also don't tend to do this unless I'm actively visually trying to represent something to you guys. Usually it's just a jump to a document symbol, right? It's all just the workflow that I'm used to. Okay, so trigger zone load. Let me see. So trigger. So zone load. Okay, so I think what we probably ought to do here, all I really need to do, instead of taking all of this poop here, I really don't need all of this stuff. I should just take the entity handle and then use the entity handle to get the transform. I have a feeling I'm losing something in translation when I'm doing it this way. So this is kind of poop anyways. In fact, this case spawn point structure I want to get rid of anyway. So let's do that. Let's instead do let's do k entity. It's gonna take me to get a while to get used to typing that out, but it is what it is. All right, so k entity, we're going to return an array of k entities, right? So we're going to say entities, k entity. All right, and all I'm going to do is go through here, and I don't actually even have to do this. I could just do this bit, which actually I don't even need the base for anything. All right, because actually all I have to do is k entity type spawn point. Right, we could actually just hard code that. And then, wait a minute. Oh, what a dongus. No wonder it's not working. Do you guys see it? I'm never pushing into this array. This should be entities sub I equals that. Right? And then we return entities. Incidentally, do we not get rid of that array? Lol, exactly. The trap of C, yeah. And what's hilarious is, like, technically that was valid code, right? Because I was creating an array and I was returning that array, but I was never writing anything into it. How that actually worked beyond that, I don't know. Ivo, I see your message there. I'm not going to read it out loud, but that's very funny. All right. So what we're going to do here is this spawn points, which I could have swore that I deleted that type. Yeah, I did. I guess there we go. So this should be k entity. And then this is going to be spawn points, so that is just entities now. It's just an array of entities. And if we don't get any spawn points out of the scene, then we just need to create a default one, right? So we're just going to do the same thing here. So k entity. And then all we're going to do is we're going to set the first one to... actually, we were getting away with that before because we had a transform. Like a default transform. We should probably actually, since we have this sort of requirement that a zone has a spawn point, right? It needs to at least have a spawn point. Ideally, it's going to have a few spawn points at each entrance into the particular level. So if that is not actually true, what we really should be doing here is k fatal, right? Let's just crash. Because our level really shouldn't be doing that, right? And this is game code, so I'm okay with that. So we're going to return in that case. So the k fatal will raise... it'll basically cause a debug break, and that will crash the application. And we're going to get rid of that. Oops, that. Okay. So now if we don't have one, it's going to be wrong. Zone system 284. Let's wait. K spawn point. Okay, so we have a few things that are broken here. So we can't do K transform world position get until we do. We need to do K scene. In fact, yeah, get entity transform, right? And so the scene itself needs to be, let's see, so state, current zone, zone scene, and then Z spawn points, spawn point ID, spawn point ID, that should actually be, that should be an entity. Am I missing a, yeah, I'm missing a bracket there. Okay, there we go. All right, so there's that. And then the rotation, oh, you know what? This is actually going to be, this is going to be used twice. So let's go ahead and extract this out. So we'll say K transform, or no, K entity, right? No, K transform. Right, and then all we have to do here is include T. Should be indices. Like the K transform function, you actually use those names for identities, for IDs into the array. So why not set up all the global indices? Wait a minute. Let me see if I can understand what you're saying. In the transform function, you actually use those names for the IDs into the array. So when I'm retrieving these things, I use the entity. So the K entity is actually got a couple things encoded into it. All a K entity is a U64, right? But it's got potentially 4 things encoded into it. This is actually not valid anymore. But basically the first two things are the most important, right? So we've got a U16 of the entity type. That is a direct match to the entity type enum here, right? So we extract that, and then the type index is the index into that particular type's array. So both of those things are represented into in an entity. At some points you just use 0, 1, etc., but at some other points in codes you use names. Yeah, if I'm doing 0 or 1, it's probably just because I always am going to want the first one, or I'm hacking something to try it. Why not just use names all over the code to make things easier for maintenance? Depends on what it is, right? If I'm doing something where it says like, where I'm like, I always want the first thing out of this list, I'm not going to like define something that says first equals 0 and then use first, right? Depends on what it is. Diamond, good to see you over there on the Twitch side. How are you doing? Let's see. Did I miss anything? Okay, spawn point. Got another one. Oh. I guess I don't need that anymore. Okay, so free array. This is going to be spawn points is type entity. Let's see, there's one more right there. Yeah, I'm not a fan of like lots of magic numbers in my code either, but like sometimes it just makes sense. In fact, I actually did a lot of fixes around that in the, you would like this, Ivo, in the editor gizmo, if I can type it. I I actually had a lot of places in here that you would have driven you absolutely nuts. Where we had, let's see, I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. Like this, for example, where we had this mode extents for the different modes. And then we have one of these per axis. So there's like the x-axis, the y-axis, z-axis, x, y, x, z, y, z, x, y, z. These things were just 0 through 6 before, and so now they're just an enumeration with the appropriate type. So I actually did come in here and fix a lot of that because this is code that's going into production. So yes, that is the kind of thing, like I have fixed that in some areas for sure. The gizmo was particularly bad about it. All right. Let's see. Oh, this is still debugging. Let's relaunch that. And again, the gizmo was like a largely experimental piece of code for a long time. Let me get rid of this breakpoint. I don't need that anymore. And I probably don't need this one anymore. Dang it. What am I missing? So that's interesting that that's still happening. Even though I specifically disallowed that kind of thing from occurring. Okay. Let's take this. And okay, so this is where zone system current spawn get. Spawn point counts. See, this right here is what should be. So that writes out rather the position and rotation. Player spawn in zone. Player C 157. Let's take, I'm just going to restart this. All right. So this has junk data in it now. Should. Yep. Okay, so we go here. Spawn point ID is 0. Spawn point count is 1. Sure. Okay, so get entity transform. So we get the entity base, we return the base transform. That does have a valid handle of 94. And then we do world position get. So we go ahead and validate that, and then do a mat4 position off of world matrices T, sub T. Let's take a look at that matrix. Data. That is an identity matrix. No wonder. I wonder though, if I take a look at local matrices rather, at the same place, that is also identity matrix. So that makes me think that maybe, whoa, what is this? Must have pasted something weird there. Um, that makes me think that maybe I've gotten the wrong transform handle. So when I do zone loaded, player load and zone, I think I want to get any transform. Okay, so the transform comes from Z spawn points, blah, blah, blah. I feel like we're getting the wrong handle somehow. So if I go here, let's do get spawn points. I want to turn this back on, and I want to see what this is actually returning to us. So we do actually have, whoops. Okay, it's got a okay, its extents look correct. I think we validated the name before. But let me go ahead and do that. Yeah, so that's the right entity. Spawn points. Am I doing something stupid here? I feel like I'm doing something stupid here, but I can't figure out what it is. Outspawn point count is 1, so we have one of those. That makes sense. When we build the handle, it should be based off of the type and the index into that array, which is always going to be 0 initially. Right there. So we return entities. We set that to the zone's state. Do we actually set? Yeah, we do set the spawn point count here. What is this? Oops. No flags. Okay. So that seems fine. Loaded callback. Spawn point ID is 0. Pass along the zone. I'm actually not sure why this is not working. Spawn point ID is correct. Get entity transform. Spawn point ID is 0. Zone scene is that. What am I missing? I feel like it's something stupid, for sure. get entity base. So it does decode the right type, and then it gets the typed index of 0. That is correct. So it decoded the entity correctly, and then returns its transform. But why then is the spawn point not... Wait a minute. Weren't we seeing the transform like in the logs before? I feel like we were. Right? That just extracts the position. And I feel like world versus local didn't actually make that much of a difference. Right? Like, if I do this... What? So the local one worked, but the global one didn't. The world one didn't. That makes absolutely no sense. Let me restart this. I want to see something. Oh, crap. That was the wrong... Turn off the wrong breakpoint. Okay. So we step into this one. Transform position get, right? So transform is going to be 94, right? 94. Right? So state positions sub T. Oh, is it possible that maybe that transform hasn't... I know what it is. I know what it is. Okay. So positions sub 94 has what we expect, right? Right there. However, the local matrices, and thus the world matrices, does not. The reason for that is we have not calculated those matrices yet. We are doing this immediately on scene load, before the scene even has a chance to actually update. So in the actual scene update, actually recalculate transforms. And in fact, this actually doesn't even do anything, I think. What really does the recalculation is when the system actually has a tick to run, the transform system. Okay, so I need to essentially when the load of the scene is complete, I need to actually wait a tick before I fire off that event. Because that's actually going to bite me in the future as well. Just like this. Okay. That's why local position worked and global didn't, because local position is already stored there as just position within the transform. Global position or world position has to be calculated based off the local transform and the transforms of its parents. Now I understand what's going on. Okay, so When we do scene loaded callback, is this actually what does it? I think it is. Game scene loaded. On scene loaded, which comes from here. Yes. Okay. So what I really need to do is delay this tick, or this, for one particular tick. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this state to loaded. We're actually going to add another state, I think. Because the states that we have don't technically represent fully what we're trying to do. So we have uninitialized parsing config loading, then loaded. We should probably say kscene state preloaded. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to say this is preloaded. And when we get to here, I think, yeah. So when we get to here with preloaded, instead of doing this, we're going to take that out of here. And we're going to move that down here for a second. We are just going to return true. Right? And then if our state equals kscene state preloaded, then we are actually going to do this. Right? And then we are going to set after that the state to loaded. Right? So it's a single frame essentially that we're going to do. So we're going to say flip to preloaded, boot out for this particular frame. And then the next frame, we're going to say, yes, this is loaded. And by then, another update tick will have occurred. The transform system should have done its updates, and we should have the data that we need. The other thing, player C. Player avatar loaded. I don't think that's what I was looking for. Where was player avatar loaded? Add avatar to scene. I think it was in zone system. So zone system get, let's see, where is unload current? We don't care about that. Don't care about that. This on scene load. This is the guy that we're looking for. So this gets called after we load the scene. I think that should actually handle it. Let's see. Let's see. After loading the scene, calculate it once, and then every frame after the camera moves. New state is not necessary. That is where you're incorrect, though, because there are certain things that I'm going to want to hook into in the future in that preloaded state, right? When the scene is loaded, but I'm not ready to yet start like updates, there are other things I'm going to want to hook into that. This is just one of those things. So it's kind of like an in-between state that I want. And you'll notice that a lot of other engines actually have this for that reason. Like they'll have a preload and then a loaded state that have callbacks and all of that stuff. It's not actually as uncommon as you might think. So just having the extra state just gives me kind of a nice way to be able to hook in extra stuff at that point if I want to. So let me step over this real quick, and we should have. Oh, did I actually? I don't think I actually updated that to use. No, I didn't. I did not update that to use. The world position. It'll also make it a little bit easier when I'm debugging to see exactly where I am at. Yeah, there we go. There's the updated thing I was looking for. So the other thing you have to remember too is the transform system is its own system separate of the scene, right? So it receives update calls from the engine. I don't want to then have my scene code reach out to the transform system and say, hey, you should update now. I don't want to like do that, right? Because that may wind up actually screwing stuff up or having other side effects that we're not counting on. So definitely don't want to do that. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. Now we're standing straight on top of the spawn point, which is exactly what we wanted. Cool. Fixed. I don't know how long that's been broken, but awesome. Let's see. What is your opinion on Rust, Zig, Odin, and all this talk about CPP not being safe? I'm going to keep this to a short-winded answer, right? First off, I'm not going to convert this code base to anything else because I'm approaching 80,000 lines of code and I'm not converting that to anything. Zig and Odin are interesting to me. Odin more so than Zig, I think. Zig's syntax to me just isn't for me, but, that's opinion. Rust has lots of things that I'm not a huge fan of. I fully like having control over my memory, right? So you can write unsafe code in Rust too. You can write code that crashes or has memory leaks in Rust as well. It's not immune to that. So as far as it being safer than C or C++, maybe, right? If you follow their strict guidelines of what to do, right? But when you're writing something like a renderer, a lot of times you have to write unsafe code anyways to interact with, the GPU and stuff like that. So, as far as that goes, there's no value to me moving to it, to be honest. Yeah, it's Zig and Odin I have not used in any length, so I can't really have an opinion on them, but yeah. Let's see. Infamy numbed edge. How's it going, Orshi? Good to see you, by the way. Love Zig syntax. Love to be explicit. Only problem I have is integer and float casting. So Zig actually has, Zig's comp time is freaking awesome. I do love the way that they implemented that. To the point where I've almost wanted to, re-implement that in my own C compiler, but I don't have time for that. Barely have time to work on this as it is. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to necessarily get into language war stuff, but yeah. There's recently a CVE in Rust code and Linux, and of course it was in the part that had to be unsafe. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. You can write unsafe code in Rust. And there are many times where you have to. All right. Anyway. So that's not really what I wanted to do tonight. I wasn't planning on troubleshooting that tonight, but here we are. What I really wanted to do was enhance this thing. and add some more stuff. So I guess we could probably just jump into this for a few minutes at least, to take a look at how some of this stuff is actually put together and fix this annoying ass bug here. So let's do that. Editor C. So if we come down here, we have in our editor initialize, right, which is stood up when the engine is sort of loading. We have this this sort of main root control that I hook everything in the editor up to. So we call that editor root, and it is just a SUI base control. So it doesn't actually have any functionality or anything on its own, other than it exists for us to attach other things to. And the reason we do that is because we can turn it on and off, and turn off the whole editor or turn on the entire editor just by flipping a single state of a single control to active or not. And so we have that, and then we have the sort of main window here, which is, let me actually launch this so I can actually visually show this as well. So the main window is this guy here, right? It contains all these couple controls. We're going to be adding a lot to this. And then over here is what I call sort of the inspector window for the current mode that we're in. So we have the main window, which is, comprised of a background panel. So that's this guy here. And you'll notice also that these windows, or the background panels, or any UI control really, blocks any sort of interactivity into the scene behind it. So essentially we basically don't allow that event to be handled beyond that, right? So if I go to select an object in the scene here, like this tree, for example, I can do that as long as there's nothing blocking it, right? But if I select off of it and move that in front of it, I can't click through this to get to that, right? So that's a very important thing that we put into place, that we can kind of maybe review here in a couple minutes if we have time. So each of these windows, and I use that term very loosely, is basically just a background panel. Eventually we'll have some sort of title bar and things like that, and maybe have the ability to move it around. Maybe. I don't know if there's a whole lot of value in that. For now, I'm just trying to get some basic things in. So we have, next we have the sort of save button, which is this big guy here. So that's always there. That's always going to save the active scene that's here, right? So we basically create a control, register it, add it as a child to the main BG panel, which is up here. And then, we set the width on that specifically to just sort of fill this whole space. And then, we set a few other properties on it. And then we set up a label that goes over it that actually contains the text. Now, this is something I probably am going to enhance in the future to allow us, when we create a button, to actually contain a label inside of it. That's the way that text boxes work. So we're probably eventually going to have the ability to create a label inside of it, and then even do things like have center or right justified text or justified text, aligned, justified, etc. We don't have that now. It's all left aligned at the moment, but eventually we may allow for those things as well. And then multi-line labels as well are technically already a thing. We're already using one of those in the drop-down panel here. So, in fact, I just noticed there's a bug there that probably shouldn't be going through that panel, but whatever. Another bug we're going to have to fix. We're going to have a lot of those, right? So that's the way that buttons work, is we have the base button, and then we have a label that goes over it. And the label is basically a child of the button. So you can just think of it that way. So when we move the button, we move the label along with it. Eventually, that's probably what's going to happen anyways. We just won't have to be as explicit with it as this. So we have the scene mode button, which is this guy. So when you click that, it just brings this up. And then you have the entity mode button. When you click that guy, it brings up this particular window. So the way that the editor is going to be set up is any of these windows, and we're going to have a lot more of them, to edit specific things other than just the scene. Things like toggling visibility and that kind of thing is also going to be huge. But any of those basically just, kind of change you to a different editor mode, and that'll not only impact what you can do here, but maybe even impact your ability to select objects in the scene. I haven't decided yet. But anyway, so we have the scene inspector window, which is actually pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to it. Essentially, this just has a window label, which is this guy up here, the scene. And then a label for the name and our text box here. So here's our name and here is our text box. Obviously, we've got a to-do in there. And then we have our entity inspector window, which has a whole lot more. So this actually changes when we make a selection into the scene. I don't know why the nine slice borders like disappear when we select text or when we set text to it. That's kind of a weird bug. I don't know why that's doing that. That's a little bit weird. Actually, I think I do know why it's doing it. I think it's the clipping area. Now that you think about it, I think the clipping area is probably being applied to the 9 slice. In fact, I'm almost positive that's what it is, because I think the clipping area isn't defined if we don't have any text. In fact, I'm positive that's what that is. So I'll have that fixed. So in clipping area, incidentally, just, prevents you from, if you have like a long piece of, a bunch of numbers here that's really long, it's supposed to like prevent the text from like spilling out like that, but it's obviously not working right. So we'll have to figure that out. Whoops, I hit escape. I really need to unbind escape as well. So that's kind of annoying that it kills the application. Not really what I want anymore. All right. So I'll just select this again. Go here. Move that out of the way. All right. So we have the entity name and label. And so the basic way that all of these things work is we have a on key handler that goes with this. So if we take a look at the entity name text box on key, essentially what this says is if we press enter in this case, it's going to go ahead and grab the control text and set that as the entity name. So this actually makes a change in the scene. So to demonstrate this, I've got tree 3 selected here. So if I change that to foobar and hit enter, and then select another object, and then go back to the tree, foobar stays. And if I were to write this out right now, in fact, I'll save it. And if we go to zone 00, we can actually see foobar right there, right? So, we know that all of that stuff works. So that's basically the way that all of these text boxes work. So we've got one of these handlers per individual text box. Now, I realize there's a lot of repeated code here. This is a lot of copy pasta. I am going to be cleaning this up and, moving some of these things to functions where the repeated code exists so that I could just call the function with some parameters from each one of these handlers and then move that on, right? So I realize that there's a lot of repeated code in here, but that's just kind of the way it goes when you're prototyping things sometimes, So we have a handler for each text box that we can't get rid of. That has to be the same per individual text box, or has to be different rather. If we were to, I suppose we could maybe make it all the same handler and just check the name of self. But that just seems not quite as clean, I guess. But it's a matter of opinion, right? So we do the same thing for all of our orientations. So we call that orientation here because orientation is our rotation. We're going to think about, as far as the editor goes, rotation is going to be Euler angles, right? So eventually we're going to have the ability to input Euler angles, but that's going to be nothing more than a user interface thing. We're going to translate those to quaternions under the hood. and the rotation within the scene is always going to be represented as a quaternion. The Euler angles will be nothing more than an interface. And of course, the scale has the same sort of thing. The other thing that I'll mention here is we also have a little bit of tab support, right? And I use that term loosely because it's kind of hard-coded right now. But basically, if you're in the, let's say you're in the orientation X, right? So this one, and you want to move on to the next one, you hit tab, it auto-focuses to the next field, right? And so when that happens, basically what's happening here is the key code is saying, hey, we're in tab, and then it's saying move on to this control. Eventually I'm going to have a tab order thing where I can define tab orders of all the controls within this particular area, or maybe have that happen automatically depending on how they're added. And then, you'll just be able to tab your way through it, because right now it's cyclic, right? You just kind of, if you're in orientation, you're stuck there. If you're in position, you're stuck there. If you're in scale, you're stuck there, unless you actually click into a different control. And so, yeah, that's basically the way that all of those controls are hooked up. Again, it's nothing too fancy. I've definitely got some work around it to do, but it is nice. Let's say that you have a situation like, I guess we could use this particular box right here as an example, right? Let's say I did something stupid and I just moved this thing way off into the distance, right? Past the clipping. Like I can't even see it because it's being clipped, right? And so how would we, get that back? First of all, you'd have to have it selected, and that's going to be another thing that we're going to have to check. But we can go over here to the position, just say, you know what, let's just zero that back out. And then when you come back over here, it's there, right? And so, it's just going to be a matter of just kind of working through the bugs that come up. We eventually need some sort of tree view of all of the entities in here, which maybe we'll build that on the next stream, just so that we have some sort of visual representation of how things are oriented. We actually have what was the editor dump hierarchy? That's what it was. Editor dump hierarchy. So we can do this, and you can kind of see it in the console, but it's actually a lot easier to view if you actually pull it up in here. Console.log. There we go. So we go all the way down here to the bottom. Let's see, where was that? Here we go. So essentially what that does is it just outputs a whole bunch of stuff to the console, right? And so it shows sort of the parent-child relationship between all of the entities in the scene. And so, this is just kind of a nice way to visualize it this way, but I think we could take this same data, the same function that walks through this data, and we could very easily convert that into a function that feeds us data in such a way where we can actually have this into a tree where we can actually select things, right? And we'll obviously need the ability to, change the way that those things are parented and so forth. So that's all the stuff we're going to be working on in the future. In fact, we might actually do that tree in the very next stream, because obviously we're not going to get to that tonight. But just kind of wanted to walk through that and show you guys where we are at. Let's see. Why reinvent the wheel? I hate that phrase. You know what? Like, why not just use I'm GUI, right? Here's the thing. This is meant to be an educational exercise on the way to design this stuff from the ground up, right? We are writing everything from scratch. I'm only writing what I need as I need it. I don't need the whole I am GUI and everything that comes with it. I am GUI is great, right? Use it if you want. But we're using this as an opportunity to explore the ways of developing a UI or systems like this to be able to use, and all the things that come with it, right? Because you never know when this kind of thing will be useful, and it'd be a lot more often than you might think, right? You wouldn't want to use IMGUI for your in-game UI, right? In most cases, for example. So you're going to have to do it from scratch, bespoke to what your game needs anyways. So this is just one way of handling that. Let's see. Where do you want users to just click and move the mouse back and forth just to adjust values slider like? Yeah, so we're going to have that as well for these. We already have the ability to, these are numeric controls, so like I can't enter like A or something like that, right? I'm pressing, alphanumeric keys on my keyboard and it won't take it, right? But I can do that up here, right? So, we already have some of that stuff in, and we already support drag events. It's just a matter of hooking those things up. So, there would be a lot of issues when creating your UI from scratch, like events fighting, etc. Maybe. I mean, I haven't had too many issues with events fighting because of the way that we've architected it, actually. I haven't had really much of any problem with that. You can click and drag on buttons and drag off of them and things like that. So, yeah, Phi, exactly. Yep. Unreal uses their Slate UI framework for both the editor and for in-game UIs, which I find interesting. Speaking of, yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example, right? A lot of these places come up with their own frameworks for a reason. Like IMGUI is great for like debugging stuff, right? But like we're looking to actually build something from scratch. So, all right. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. Let me just... God's chosen language. Nice. Yeah. Thank you for that. Welcome. First time chatter, by the way. Fixed my hot reloading code. It was, of course, me being proficient in Dingus-oriented programming. That's perfect, Apotham. Yeah, I'm glad you've joined the ways of Dingus-oriented programming. That's what we do here. Ryan, why reinvent the wheel into complaining modern UE5 games run at 30 FPS? It was a true combo, yeah. Reminds me of people asking me why I said I tried using C for projects instead of C++. I get that question all the time, Bad Comic. All the time. First time chatter. I could have swore that I've seen your name pop up before. Maybe it was on YouTube or something. I've recognized your name. I don't know why it says first time chatter, but I'm pretty sure I've seen you before. Could you imagine if people never reinvented the wheel, our cars would be driving on stone wheels instead of rubber? Yeah, exactly. Yep. So like I said, this is just showcasing a way. Somebody might be able to take this stuff and be like, you know what? That's cool, but I have a better idea, a better way of doing it. And then they go off and make something awesome. And then we have something new. YouTube? It was YouTube. Okay. I was going to say, I could have swore I recognized your name. Just came here. Did I miss an hour-long retained versus immediate discussion or not? No, you didn't. Actually, a lot of it was bug fixing or chasing down a stupid issue with spawn points. But yeah, we just kind of went over like all of the different things I've added for the editor UI, which we're going to be expanding on in the next stream. My grandpa still uses his car he got in the 80s, sits in the garage every day tweaking it. I get that, right? I'd love to have an old classic. Older than the 80s, preferably. Ideally 60s or older. Let's see. Anyways, I have to go to sleep now. It's 5 a.m. here. Looking forward to the future Instagram series. How to groom a beard. Right. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. I might do it as a joke one day. Maybe April Fools. Watch out. Not looking forward to working on UI for my own engine, but I know I have needs IMGUI would make more difficult. Been working on a lot of render improvements instead. I totally get that. Yeah. Sometimes using a huge framework is not the answer, right? Especially if you just need simple things. Like, it did not take a terrible amount of work to set these things up, right? And this is like all we need. Maybe I'll add checkboxes, but that's just a fancy button, right? Using C is very important. Get rid of complex CPP stuffs that cause real game engines things hard to understand. Yeah. I like C because it's a much simpler language, for sure. Anyway, I am over time tonight, so let me find somebody to raid. Let's see. Let me see who's on. Give me just a minute to scroll through the old list here. I guess let's go with You know what I haven't rated in a while? Jitsbo. We're gonna raid Jitsbo, see what he's up to. Let me just check something over on the YouTube. I don't know if he dual streams to YouTube, but let me see. I have to remember how to do it over on the YouTube side. It takes a minute. No, I don't think he streams to YouTube. All right. I guess on the YouTube side, I don't have anybody to send you guys to tonight. But over on the Twitch side, thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you guys to over on the YouTube side for being here as well. Appreciate that. I'll drop a link to where we're going on the Twitch side. But yeah, if you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate a follow on the Twitch and or YouTube side. I'm trying to grow both channels. Hopefully to inspire more people to get into this stuff, right? But yeah, anyways, that's going to do it for tonight. I will see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya. And for those of you on the YouTube side, that is who we rated on the Twitch side.